Hi, we're back talking about lessons that we can learn from how the county has been responding to COVID-19. And specifically, we're talking about personal connections and being entrepreneurial as a county.
You think about who is this pandemic affected the most, and it's seniors.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've got an 84-year-old dad, and my mom is 76, and they have done all of the right things, but it's been a long time, you know, that they have been at home. And, you know, what does that do to that population? I mean, and the fact that they're able to call, I mean, what kind of calls have you been getting?
And also, if you don't mind, for folks who don't know, what is your call center?
Yeah.
And then, yes, what kind of calls have you been getting?
Our call center is the outreach call center for older residents, and it was kind of a spinoff of the county call center, and it's specifically targeted for our older residents. We wanted to make sure that we could reach those who the CDC is really saying are the most vulnerable to COVID-19. And social isolation is a well-documented issue, especially within the older population, and can have some really serious health effects. So we wanted to make sure that we could still connect with older residents and provide, one, a place for resources, but also a consistent, friendly voice and resource. And we've just had a lot of really great calls come through there, and I'd love to share one with you. So there was one situation that comes to mind when I think about how powerful this was. And so it was actually a Friday evening. It was within the first week, and I'd actually gone out to the grocery store. So I get back to my car. I was sitting in Wegmans parking lot, and I see I have 3 missed calls. So I call everybody back, figure out what's going on. And it turned out that we had a citizen who had called in, and she was just really upset and completely overwhelmed with the situation. She said that she didn't have any food, that she really wasn't sure how she was going to be able to get to the grocery store, get transportation to where she needed to go. After I called her back and we started talking, she actually had a lot more resources than she thought she did. But she was afraid about the what ifs, not knowing if her transportation provider was still going to be able to do that, if the person who was going to take her to the grocery store was going to follow through. There were just a lot of unknowns. So we actually got her registered for the program. She receives calls every day. And I've just seen such a huge difference in the call notes and her, and I'm sure Elizabeth knows exactly who I'm talking about. The notes have really gone from her being overwhelmed and just trying to connect her with resources and calm her worry to them talking about things that bring her joy, which to her are British TV shows. So that's typically what our call center folks end up talking with her about. So it's really neat to see how those connections have grown throughout the last couple of months.
And where did that come from you, or just conversations with the other call center? Because it certainly didn't come from us, right?
That's right. I mean,
So, and I think that's another story, is that has been an idea that came from people on the front lines who are hearing it from the community and implemented it.
Conversations with it started about a week before it launched, so it was a pretty quick turnaround. And I know that Jen and IT
Kudos to IT as usual.
So it was a really quick turnaround, but it was actually kind of a collaboration between the Emergency Operations Center. We knew that we needed to outreach to older adults. Myself, social services, and county administration, Brandon Hinton as well, talking about, how do we reach this population, what's being done around the community. And while there are telephone reassurance programs throughout the community, so many of them were operating at capacity already. So we knew that this was a good opportunity for us to also be able to outreach to those folks.
And that's, we were talking about entrepreneurial, right? I mean, I'm so glad to hear stories like this or efforts like this where you have an environment and there's a conversation that starts and it's like, what if? And then you tap into a resource and the next thing you know, you're doing it. And so that's what we mean about, entrepreneurial, our Henrico way, how you were able to recognize the need and then know that you can go out and meet that need without a whole lot of, oversight or any kind of, bureaucracy choking that effort. And, if there's a way that kind of thing continues beyond what we're dealing with now, I think that will be another good takeaway, result of this, horrible situation that we find ourselves in. And so I want to thank both of you, all three of you, for the approach that you took and how you did it. I mean, the fact that you were able to piece together components that we had never thought about. And so, I just want to say thank you, and job well done. I mean, absolutely incredible.
It's incredible. And we've only talked about, 2 call centers, but we also know that IT set up one for the Virginia Department of Health, right? So we're not only meeting our community's needs, but the larger region in the Commonwealth. So it's kudos all around.